Helios Station was a massive structure of steel and light, floating in the cold silence of space. It orbited a dying blue star on the edge of the Andromeda expanse, far from Earth. Here, alien ambassadors, politicians, and strategists from across the galaxy met under the flag of the Galactic Council. The station was a monument to diplomacy, but also a place where the powerful reminded the weak of their place. Commander James Carter stood in the shadows of the council chamber, watching the session unfold from the rear observation deck. He wore a simple dark uniform, marked only by a faded Earth defense patch on his shoulder. Around him, holograms of council delegates flickered, tall insectoids, lizard-skinned diplomats, silver-skinned telepaths, all speaking in calm, rehearsed tones. Their voices carried the weight of centuries of power. Earth had no seat in the main chamber. Its representatives were allowed to observe, nothing more. Carter had grown used to the cold stares, the whispers, the way they dismissed his people as primitive, emotional, and unfit for real power. He watched silently as High Chancellor Vornex, the council's leader, addressed the assembly. Vornex stood tall and composed, with a face that rarely showed emotion. His dark robes shimmered with nanotech threads, a symbol of his authority. "Our peace remains intact," Vornex said, his voice even and controlled. "But chaos still stirs in the outer systems. Order must be maintained. Some less disciplined species require firm guidance." A ripple of agreement moved through the chamber. Carter narrowed his eyes. He had heard similar speeches before, always just before the council made a move, always just before someone lost their freedom. Later, in a dim corridor outside the chamber, Carter met with Major Elon Reyes, a trusted friend and Earth's intelligence officer on Helios. Reyes handed him a small black data chip, his voice low. "This came from one of our taps inside the Council's military command," Reyes said. "You need to see it." Carter inserted the chip into his wrist comm. A holoscreen lit up before him. Lines of Council code decrypted and unfolded into a detailed plan. Project Silence. Target, Earth. Purpose, live weapon calibration. Timeline, 14 days. Carter froze. The Council was planning to test a new weapon. On Earth itself. They weren't just watching anymore. They were preparing to erase a problem. He looked up at Reyes. "How sure are you?" Reyes met his eyes. "Sure enough to risk treason." For a moment, Carter said nothing. Then, slowly he nodded. His voice was steady. "Then we don't have a choice." That night, Carter returned to his quarters. He stood by the window, looking out at the stars. He had tried to live in peace, to serve as an advisor, to protect Earth from within the Council system. But now they had crossed the line. The galaxy believed Earth was weak. They would soon learn how wrong they were. Carter packed a small bag, essentials, nothing more. He secured the chip inside a hidden compartment in his jacket. Then he left a final message in his terminal log. "Going dark. For Earth." He stepped into the docking bay, where a small freighter waited. Its pilot was loyal. No questions were asked. As the ship detached and moved into open space, Carter's mind was already calculating what would come next. He would not go back to Earth as an observer. He would return as a soldier. The freighter moved through deep space like a silent shadow, leaving Helios Station far behind. Inside, Commander James Carter stood near the front viewport, arms crossed, eyes locked on the black void ahead. Stars flickered outside, cold and distant. He didn't look away. He was thinking about what needed to be done and about the past that had shaped him into the man he was now. It had been 6 years since the last Earth War, a brutal conflict with a rogue alien faction that had nearly broken the planet's defenses. Carter had led the final counterstrike, saving millions, but at the cost of his entire unit. He could still remember their names, their faces. Sometimes, in his dreams, he heard their voices calling out across space. After that, he left active service and took a quiet advisory post at Helios. He thought he could help from the inside, guide Earth's future through diplomacy. But the Council didn't want Earth's advice. They wanted obedience. Now, with the discovery of Project Silence, Carter knew there was no more time to sit and watch. The freighter docked at a remote refueling station orbiting a dead moon. It was an old outpost, long abandoned by the council, now run by smugglers, drifters, and people who didn't want to be found. Waiting in the station's dusty cantina was a man Carter hadn't seen in years, Commander Malik Drayan. Tall, broad, with graying hair and a mechanical left eye, Malik had once served under Carter during the war. Malik stood as Carter approached. "No check." Just a nod. "That was enough. I heard you left Helios," Malik said, his voice like gravel. "Didn't expect to see you out here." "I need help," Carter replied simply. "The Council's planning to wipe out Earth. I have proof." Malik didn't flinch. He gestured for Carter to sit. They spoke for hours, away from prying ears. Carter explained everything: Project Silence, the data chip, the Council's growing control. Malik listened quietly, absorbing every word. Finally, Malik said, "So, we fight again?" Carter looked him in the eye. "We do." From there, they set to work. Malik had kept a few contacts over the years: former soldiers, colony leaders, engineers who still believed in Earth's strength. Over encrypted comms, messages were sent. Codes were spoken. One by one, old names answered the call. But not everyone welcomed Carter. On the outer colony of Vesta Prime, Carter and Malik landed to speak with Governor Terra Voss, leader of the Vesta Council. Voss was sharp, stubborn, and proud of Vesta's independence. "You're asking us to go to war with the Galactic Council," she said in her private chambers. "For Earth." "For all of us," Carter replied. "Today it's Earth. Tomorrow it'll be Vesta. You know how they work." She studied him, arms crossed. "Do you have a plan?" Carter nodded. "Disrupt their communications. Cut off their supply lines. Strike before they activate the weapon. We won't win by strength. We'll win by surprise." It took time and trust. But finally, Voss gave a reluctant nod. "You get one squad. Use it well." Over the next few days, Carter's crew began to form. Malik, Voss's strike squad. A rogue pilot named Cora Vale who could fly anything with wings. And, unexpectedly, Kale, a young alien diplomat who had once worked on Helios. Kale belonged to the Zevari, a telepathic race known for neutrality. But Kale believed the Council had gone too far. "You're not just defending Earth," Kale said. "You're defending freedom. That's why I'm here." Together, they moved to a hidden location deep in asteroid fields, an old refueling shipyard forgotten by time. There, Carter began assembling his next move: gather what they could, rebuild what was left, and strike before Earth became nothing more than a test site. One evening, Malik found Carter alone, working on an old battle map. "You sure about this, James?" he asked. Carter didn't look up. "No, but I'm sure about one thing." "What's that?" "If we don't stand up now, no one will." Malik nodded. "Then let's wake the stars." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the sky. Cold, silent, waiting. But Carter wasn't the man who had watched from the shadows anymore. He had left that part of himself on Helios Station. The war had started, even if the Council didn't know it yet. The asteroid field known as Scourge's Drift was vast and lifeless, but within it, something stirred. Hidden between jagged rocks and frozen wreckage, an old refueling station buzzed with new life. Lights flickered on, long-dormant engines hummed, and voices filled the air once more. Commander James Carter stood at the center of it all, watching his team come together piece by piece. It wasn't an army yet, but it was a start. Carter's first mission was to unite scattered colonies who still had the strength to fight. Most Earth colonies had long since accepted the Council's dominance. Some did so out of fear, others out of survival. But Carter believed there were still sparks waiting to be lit. Their first stop was Sirian, a mining colony carved into the side of a gray moon. Carter, Malik, and Cora Vale, his reckless but talented pilot, landed quietly under a false ID tag. The colony looked worn down. Buildings were patched together with scrap metal. Miners moved like ghosts, covered in dust and worry. The Council had drained the planet's resources and left it broken. Carter met with Rafe Juno, the colony's foreman. Rafe had once served as a fighter pilot before his squad was disbanded by Council decree. "Why should we fight?" Rafe asked, leaning on a rusted railing. "The Council left us nothing to defend." Carter answered calmly, "Because they'll keep taking. You can't wait for the fire to reach your door. Rafe studied him. Behind his eyes, Carter could see the same anger he carried. Buried, but still burning. By nightfall, 20 volunteers stood ready. They weren't soldiers, but they had grit. Carter welcomed them aboard the ship. Rafe joined as well, bringing his knowledge of space routes and backdoors through Council territory. Their next stop was Polaris Outpost, a trade hub with ties to several neutral systems. Kale, the Zevori diplomat, took the lead there. His calm voice and psychic presence helped ease talks with stubborn merchants and alien leaders who feared the Council's wrath. Carter sat in on every meeting, always silent, always observing. He let Kale speak of honor, of freedom, of what the Council had become. He watched as Kale's words planted seeds. A small group of alien traders agreed to help. They offered fuel, supplies, and access to a hidden data relay deep in unmonitored space. That relay was Carter's next target. If they could intercept and jam a major Council communication node, they would slow down fleet coordination and buy time for Earth and the colonies. But it wouldn't be easy. The node was protected by a satellite array and a small patrol fleet. Carter called for a meeting in the ship's war room. The map of the relay system floated above the table in glowing blue light. "We hit fast and disappear," he said. "Disable the satellites, download the transmission logs, and detonate the station. No long fights. In and out." Cora grinned. "Just the way I like it." The operation launched at dawn. Carter led the team aboard a stealth vessel modified by Rafe's engineers. They approached the node under minimal power, slipping between patrol patterns. As they neared the station, Kale reached out telepathically, sensing no major resistance. They docked quietly. Inside, the station was cold and quiet. Carter's team moved in formation, weapons ready. They found only a skeleton crew, young officers, unaware of the war brewing. They didn't kill anyone. Carter had given strict orders. Stun only. While Kale downloaded the transmission logs, Carter planted charges around the command core. Rafe guarded the corridor. Malik covered the escape route. Everything moved with precision until the alarms triggered. A Council patrol had arrived early. The ship rocked under fire as Carter's team rushed back aboard. Cora pushed the engines to full as fighters closed in. The freighter weaved between asteroids, dodging blasts and returning fire where possible. Just before jumping to hyperspace, Carter hit the remote detonator. The node exploded in a silent burst of white light. Data was wiped. Communications were severed. The Council would feel that hit. Back at the base, the team celebrated quietly. There were no cheers, no shouts, just quiet pride. They had struck the first blow. Later that night, Carter sat alone in his quarters, studying the transmission logs. What he found made his stomach twist. Project Silence was further along than he feared. The weapon wasn't just being tested. It was being moved, piece by piece, toward the Sol system. Earth was in more danger than ever. Carter tapped a message into the ship's log. Stage 1 complete. Resistance active. Planning next strike. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and breathed deeply. The fire had started, and he would feed it until the stars took notice. The silence in space was never truly silent. Within the hidden shipyard deep in Scourge's Drift, the hum of engines, the clank of metal, and the low murmur of voices filled the air like a slow rhythm. Commander James Carter stood at the center of it all, reviewing star maps as repair crews patched holes and technicians upgraded old weapon systems. His team had struck the Council once, and now the retaliation was coming. The logs taken from the destroyed relay station confirmed his fear. Project Silence was being moved through Council-controlled systems toward Earth. The weapon wasn't a single bomb or missile. It was a fleet-sized energy platform, capable of turning a planet's surface to ash. They had to strike again. But before Carter could act, the Council found him first. It began with silence. Communication with Syrian. 4, the mining colony that had pledged men and supplies, went dark. Then came a distress signal, broken, frantic. Under attack, Council patrol, request immediate. Then nothing. Carter's jaw tightened. "They're sending a message," he muttered. Within an hour, a surveillance drone picked up Council ships moving through the outer edge of the asteroid field. Not a full fleet, just enough to cause damage and track Carter's location. "We've been found," Malik said. "Then we can't stay," Carter replied. "Prepare the jump protocols. We leave tonight." But the Council didn't wait for night. The attack came fast. 5 Council warships, sleek and deadly, dropped out of hyperspace and moved in with practice formation. They didn't broadcast warnings. They didn't offer surrender. They came to destroy. Alarms rang through the station. Crew members scrambled to battle stations. Lights flickered red. Inside the command deck, Carter gave his orders with cold precision. "Evac ships first. Defend the dock until they're gone. Then we fight." The first blast tore through the outer hull. One storage bay went up in flames. But the station's defenses, though old, still worked. Plasma cannons fired back, knocking out one of the incoming ships. Malik led a strike team to the southern corridor to repel boarding parties. Kale used his psychic ability to detect intruders before they arrived, guiding troops through narrow maintenance shafts to flank and trap them. In the hangar, Cora Vale prepped the command ship for emergency departure. Her voice came over the comms, steady and sharp. "Engine's hot. If you're not aboard in 5, I'm leaving without you." "Noted," Carter said, smiling faintly despite the chaos. He stayed on the command deck, coordinating the defense until the last second. When the second wave of enemy ships arrived, he knew the time had come. He gave a final order. "Evacuate. Below the core. We can't let this place fall into their hands." The station's self-destruct protocol was activated. As Carter ran through smoke-filled corridors, he saw flashes of the past. His soldiers on Earth, the battles he'd survived, the ones he'd lost. But this time, he would live to fight again. He made it to the hangar, just as the countdown reached 1 minute. Malik was already aboard. Rafe helped Carter climb up the ramp, both men covered in ash and blood. "Everybody made it?" Carter asked. "Most," Rafe said. "Not all." Carter said nothing. There was no time to mourn. Cora punched the thrusters. The ship shot out of the hangar just as the station exploded behind them. Fire and debris filled space. The Council ships scattered to avoid the blast. They jumped to hyperspace seconds later. Safe for now. Inside the ship, silence fell again. Everyone was exhausted. Some had wounds, others had lost friends. But they were alive. Kale joined Carter in the command room. He placed a hand on the table, his voice low. "The Council will call this terrorism." "They can call it whatever they want," Carter said. "They started this." Kale nodded. "More colonies will hear of this. Some will fear us. Others will join us." Carter looked out the viewport, watching stars blur by. "They should fear us," he said. "We're not finished." He turned to the team. "We hit them again. This time where it hurts." Their next target was the moon where Project Silence was being housed. The weapon had to be destroyed before it reached Earth. They had no fleet, no army, but they had purpose, and each day, their resistance grew. The moon was called Drexus Theta, a cold, lifeless rock orbiting a gas giant in the Darnell system. On the surface, it looked like nothing more than rock and dust. But beneath, buried in steel and concrete, was the heart of Project Silence, the weapon the Galactic Council had designed to erase Earth. Commander James Carter stood aboard the Solstice, the main ship of his small fleet, staring at a projected image of the moon. A red circle glowed over its southern ridge. "That's the weak point," Rafe explained. "There's a vent shaft that runs deep into the facility. If we plant charges there, we can bring the entire complex down." Carter nodded. "How well defended?" Kale answered from across the table. 6 planetary turrets, 2 patrol ships in orbit, a small security garrison underground. Not enough for a full invasion, but too much for a clean drop. "We're not doing a clean drop," Carter said. "We go in quiet." He turned to the others in the room, Malik, Cora, Kale, and a handful of resistance leaders from the colonies. Each had seen battle. Each had lost something to the Council. Now they were ready to strike back. "The mission is simple," Carter continued. "We land on the far side. We take a team through the ridge tunnels. We plant charges at the core. Once the station is destabilized, we retreat and detonate. And if they catch us?" Cora asked. "They won't," Carter said. But deep down he knew the risk. Some of them wouldn't make it back. The next night, under cover of a solar storm, the Solstice dropped out of hyperspace on the dark side of Drexus Theta. Their stealth modules kept them hidden from scanners. A small shuttle carried the strike team toward the surface, sliding silently between jagged craters and frozen cliffs. Inside the shuttle, the team moved in silence. Each soldier checked their gear. Each man and woman stared forward, ready. Carter sat near the back, his eyes closed. He was thinking, not of strategy or danger, but of Earth, of blue skies and warm wind, of a planet worth saving. The shuttle landed with a soft thud. The ramp dropped. Snow and dust blew in their faces as they moved into the shadows of the moon's rocky surface. Kale led the way, using his mental abilities to sense enemy presence. They moved fast, tight, through narrow tunnels and forgotten maintenance routes. Carter's team had rehearsed this route a dozen times. Every step, every corner was mapped in their minds. Still, the unexpected found them. Near the main power shaft, a motion alarm triggered. Light snapped on. Doors slammed shut. "Move!" Carter shouted. They stormed through corridors, exchanging fire with security drones. Malik took a hit to the shoulder, but kept going. Cora laid down cover fire, while Kale bypassed the locks on the blast doors. Inside the core chamber, the weapon stood like a sleeping monster, black metal and pulsing energy. A dish the size of a building loomed above, pointed toward the stars. Carter stared at it for a moment. So this was it, the thing they planned to use against Earth. He gave the order. Plant the charges. 3-minute fuse. Rafe and 2 others moved fast, securing explosive packs to the core's base. As the countdown began, the team ran. But council guards are closing in fast. In the outer corridor, a firefight broke out. One resistance fighter was hit. Rafe stayed behind to cover the retreat. Malik grabbed Carter, blood on his face, dragging him to the exit. The team reached the shuttle with 15 seconds to spare. As the engines fired, the moon trembled beneath them. A glow burst from beneath the surface. Then, in one roaring eruption, the facility was gone. Fire and smoke poured into the sky, and the dish collapsed inward like a broken crown. From orbit, the Solstice picked them up. Carter limped aboard, his uniform scorched, face cut. Kale met him at the airlock. "It's done." Carter looked back at the moon, now cracked and burning. It started. News of the attack spread fast. The council tried to call it a terrorist act, but truth couldn't be hidden. Kale had broadcast the entire event, data logs, blueprints, and proof of the weapon's target. The galaxy watched. Some were afraid. Others were inspired. Earth was still in danger. But now it was not alone. The sky above Earth had never looked so full of stars and ships. Some were small and fast. Old Earth defense vessels pulled from deep storage and patched with colonial parts. Others were alien crafts, sleek and unfamiliar, flown by those who had chosen to stand with James Carter. Together, they formed a wall between Earth and the approaching storm. The Galactic Council was coming. From the command deck of the Solstice, Carter watched the incoming sensor feed. Dozens of Council warships, moving in perfect formation, closing in on Earth's orbit. At their center was the flagship, Vornex's Hand, a monster of a vessel, black as space and armed with enough firepower to turn continents to dust. Beside Carter stood Kale, calm as ever, his eyes fixed on the projection. "They're not just here to punish Earth," he said quietly. "They want to end this war before it spreads." Carter nodded. "Then we show them it's already too late." Across the fleet, orders went out. Fighter pilots checked their gear. Engineers sealed hulls. Troops loaded weapons. Every man and woman knew what was coming. This was not just another battle. This was the last stand. As the Council ships entered firing range, the silence broke. Beams of light tore through the black sky. Explosions lit up the stars. Carter's fleet answered with everything they had: missiles, plasma fire, railguns. Old systems groaned under the pressure, but they held. In the chaos, Carter gave the signal. Execute Phase 2. From behind Earth's moon, a second wave emerged. Ships from colonies that had been silent until now. Mars, Titan, Vesta Prime. even alien sympathizers from Polaris. They flanked the Council's formation, cutting through supply ships and disrupting their lines. Still, the Council pressed forward. On the ground, Earth cities went dark as defensive shields activated. Civilian transport fled underground shelters. Above them, the battle raged. Carter's command ship shook violently. "We've taken a hit to the port stabilizer," shouted Cora from the pilot's seat. "Reroute power and hold position," Carter barked back. "We stay in the fight." Then the moment came. Their scanners picked up a clear path to the Council flagship. Vornex's ship was vulnerable just for a few minutes. "I'm going in," Carter said. Malik turned from the weapons console. "Alone. We don't have time to argue," Carter replied. "I'll take a strike shuttle. Disable the flagship's command core. Force a surrender." "You'll never make it," Cora said. Carter gave a grim smile. "That's what they always say." He launched in a small, heavily shielded shuttle, punching through enemy fire with the help of escort fighters. The hull rattled. Warning lights flashed. But Carter kept flying, eyes locked on the flagship ahead. He crashed through the docking bay and stormed inside, rifle in hand. The corridors were gold and black, smooth and cold. Council guards fell quickly under Carter's fire. He moved fast, pushing toward the bridge. There, standing beneath a curved window that looked out over Earth, was High Chancellor Vornex. The alien turned slowly, robes flowing, calm as ever. "You should have stayed hidden, Commander," he said. Carter raised his weapon. "And let you destroy everything I swore to protect." Vornex tilted his head. "Earth is a threat to balance. You teach rebellion. Chaos. We teach freedom," Carter said. "That's what scares you." Vornex moved to activate the weapons console, but Carter shot it first. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. Outside, the tide of battle was turning. Council ships falling back, retreating under heavy fire. Vornex snarled and rushed Carter, but age had slowed him. Carter knocked him down with the butt of his rifle. "I should kill you," he said. "But you won't," Vornex whispered. "Because you need to be better than us." Carter stepped back. "No," he said, "because I want you alive when the galaxy sees you fall." He transmitted a live message from the flagship's controls, showing the Council's defeat, showing Vornex beaten. One by one, Council ships powered down. The war was over. Carter limped back to his shuttle, exhausted but alive. He returned to Earth to a sky finally free of warships. People gathered in the streets. Cheers rose from cities and colonies alike. The resistance had won. Kale met him at the landing pad, smiling faintly. "You did it," he said. "No," Carter replied, looking out over the planet. "We did." The world had changed. From orbit, Earth looked as it always had, blue and bright, covered in swirling clouds. But on the surface, everything felt different. The fear was gone. The silence was gone. People walked in the open again, looked up at the sky, and no longer saw the enemy. They saw hope. Commander James Carter stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on Helios Station, where it had all started. The chamber that once ignored Earth now stood filled with leaders, alien and human, who had watched the Council fall. The long, curved wall of the chamber no longer displayed just the symbols of dominant Council races. Earth's flag now hung beside them. Carter didn't wear his old Earth defense uniform anymore. He stood in a plain suit, scar on his cheek, quiet as always. But when he walked through the assembly, people turned to look. They made space for him. Even those who had once doubted Earth now nodded in quiet respect. At the center of the room, the Council chair sat empty. High Chancellor Vornex had been taken into custody, stripped of his title, and charged with war crimes. The Council still existed, but it was no longer in command. A new alliance was forming, a true union made of equals. And it had started because Carter refused to back down. Kale stood at the podium, speaking on behalf of the Transitional Alliance. "This war has taught us many things. That fear leads to tyranny. That arrogance blinds even the wise. But it also reminded us of something far greater: resilience. Unity. The right to rise, no matter how far we fall." He turned to Carter and gestured him forward. Carter approached slowly, the weight of the war still in his steps. He looked around the chamber, not as an outsider this time, but as a leader. "I didn't come here to make speeches," he began. I didn't fight to lead governments. I only wanted to protect my people." He paused. But what started as a fight for Earth became something bigger. We stood for those without a voice, for colonies left behind, for allies who believed change was possible. He looked toward the banners. They believed we were weak. But we weren't. We were underestimated. A ripple of quiet agreement passed through the room. The war is over. But the work has just begun. We rebuild. We forgive. We protect. Together. When he stepped down, the applause was not loud, but it was deep and real. And that was enough. In the weeks that followed, the Solstice was docked permanently at Earth's orbital station. Its battle-scarred hull was turned into a memorial. People visited to leave messages, flowers, and thanks. Carter returned to the surface. He didn't ask for a title. He refused offers of political power. Instead, he walked the streets of the cities he had helped save. Children ran by without fear. Markets were full. The sky was clear. Malik retired to Vesta Prime, helping rebuild defenses there. Cora opened a flight academy on Mars. Kale returned to Zevari space as an ambassador, a bridge between species. And Carter? He built a small home in the mountains, where no warships flew and no alarm sounded. Sometimes, he received messages from those he had fought beside. He always answered, even if only with a few words. He never called himself a hero, but the galaxy did. One evening, as he stood watching the stars from his porch, a young cadet landed nearby. She brought news of a new planetary alliance, one built on everything they had fought for. She asked him if he'd come back, just to speak, just to remind them what leadership meant. Carter smiled faintly, then looked up at the sky. "I'll think about it," because the war was over. But peace, true peace, needed protectors too.